Save Dicks?
Well, I started in 2002. We formed the very first organization to try to save Dix, and that was the Dix Community Partnership. And that organization folded into the Friends of Dorothea Dix Park. And then from that, two groups spawned out of that one. One was Dix 306, and the other one was Dix Visionaries. And so each of the different groups has sort of a different focus. And so those are the three groups that are,
Okay.
and I've been involved in all three of them.
In what ways would it affect you if the land developed?
Well, it's not likely that all the land would be developed. There's the section that's down by the creek, Rocky Branch, is in a floodplain, and part of it has been was a city dump, landfill, and that's been converted into soccer fields, and they can't really do anything with that. So since there's a significant amount of political pressure to try to create a park, all the plans have included the landfill area and the floodplain as being park-like. So for me personally, since I'm across the street from the lowlands, the area, I would be buffered from whatever construction was actually taking place if they developed it. But the development would create a huge amount of traffic, and it would create a hotter environment because the buildings and the roads are all going to absorb heat a lot faster than the trees and the grass. So it would increase the temperature here, and it would increase the traffic tremendously.
Okay. Do you think the way the Dix is developed could have an effect on global warming?
Well, it certainly could, for the reasons that I just mentioned. Whenever you have trees, they're sequestering carbon, and if you're growing trees and you're not cutting them down, then they're going to sequester that carbon for as long as the tree's alive. And then there are other advantages too in the transpiration of water, creates locally cool areas, and it also cleans the air. So there are a lot of advantages to having it to be a green space. But I think for global warming, it's both the reduction of hard surfaces that are going to pick up heat from the sun, and the sequestering of carbon dioxide.
Have you ever thought of being Dix associated with CO2 emissions before now?
Yes, that was one of the arguments that we've used over the years in the various groups.
When was it first suggested that Dix be turned into a public park?
Well, we suggested that as part of the Dix Community Partnership in 2002. So that was really the beginning of the park proposal. And that was actually spurred by the Dix used to be over 2,000 acres, and there's only 306 acres left. So it used to be Dorothea Dix's original goal was to have a country setting where with farm activities, so that the mentally ill could participate in these normal daily type farming activities, and that would be what they would use to help them lead normal lives. And so the property was purchased by the state for a mental hospital, and it was used that way for many years. And over the years, the 2,000 acres has been trimmed off. Some of it was given to NC State for research farms, and then Jim Hunt, one of our earlier governors, gave a huge chunk of it to the state for the Centennial Campus. And then a few years later, just before he left office, he gave another section of Dorothea Dix, called the Spring Hill Precinct, which is the ridge line, the back of the property now. He gave that to NC State. And it was at that point when we realized, and then they said that they were going to close the hospital. And at the point when they said they were going to close the hospital, that's what spurred us to think about what's going to happen to this property after they close the hospital, and that's when we began the groups to try to organize the form of park.
What are your plans for the park if Dix is sold to the city?
Well, the first plan would be to develop a master planning process. And that's probably the most important. And that's where we would get all the people that live around the park property and other people that have an interest in it to participate in making a plan that would be a 50-year or a 100-year plan on how the park should be developed. And then the next step would be to start raising money. The Dix Visionaries is primarily interested in that sort of activity, and they would be the beginning of the Friends of Dix fund to help develop the resources in the park. And then there would probably be activities to try to get corporations to sponsor certain kinds of, after the park had been, the master plan had been created, then you would get corporations to sponsor certain sections of that master plan. If, say, for instance, in the master plan there was a formal garden somewhere, or maybe you could get Cree or one of the other big companies in the area, or SAS, to come up with the money and the resources to actually create that formal garden. And maybe there'd be a sculpture garden somewhere else, and another corporation would want to sponsor that. So it's a question of raising money and getting sponsorships and starting the process of fleshing out the master plan.
What methods are you using to make the public aware of this issue?
We're using a variety of methods. Probably the most effective has been the Dix 306 signs. And that got that was the grassroots movement, where Dix 306 was out there to actually meet people and one-on-one, visit them at their houses, explain what the situation was to them personally, and get these signs up so that other people would become aware and it would become a talking point. The second thing we've done is write letters to the editors and point of view articles for the newspaper. And the other thing we've done is maintain activity on the blogs when the issue was hot. And then I was on the one of the state commissions to look into what the property should happen to the property. And so we used our contacts there to try to keep the park aspect in the front, on the front burner, and responded to newspaper and television opportunities to try to get as much coverage as we could on that. So that's pretty much what we've been doing.
Okay. What are you doing to save the park?
Well, that's sort of this last one, not the last question.
Yeah. Like, how much money funds have you raised so far?
Well, the Dix Visionaries have raised several $100,000, and the Friends of Dix has raised tens of thousands of dollars, and we've used that to hire experts to try to prove to the state and to the city that it really is in the best interest of the city to make it a park. That there are tremendous financial gains for the city, direct financial gains to the city, by making it a park. And we wanted to prove that so they would believe it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.